Welcome to the Relational Reset. I am Latoya Logan and I'll be facilitating this session. And if you've been following along, this is episode 5. We're going to talk about trauma-informed relational repair. But before I get into that, I need to say something really important. Happy Black History Month to you, to yours, to the world who owes us a mini thank you for all of our contributions, for our ability to not burn ish down when we could have justifiably. But I also want us to think about, as we find ourselves at a critical moment in history where it isn't just that we're dealing with racism, but that we are dealing with questions asked of us that were asked and answered by our ancestors. And I know that so many people have said over the years, foolishly have said, well, if I were in my ancestor situation, I would have done that. Well, let me say to you, you have currently found yourself in a historical moment. You have found yourself in a moment where your ancestors not only lived, but gave birth to those who gave birth to you, who maintained hope, who fought tirelessly for us to be here today. And I want you to think about, what are you doing in this very crucial moment? How are you moving things forward? How are you loving on yourself and others? How are you lifting up your values and living in integrity? So in this Black History Month, I hope you see this month differently this time. That in 2026, Black History Month is not just about looking to the past. It's about implementing what our ancestors taught us. It's about us stepping up and understanding that it's now on us. It's now in our hands. We hold it. And what are we willing to do? So for episode 5, Trauma-Informed Relationships, I hope that you have been following along in your ebook that you could download at humanarchitectstudio.com for free to be learning how we can actually repair ruptures in relationships. And often what we fail to understand when we start dating someone is, or we start building businesses with someone, or we decide we want to be friends with someone, and we enter into these relationships, we don't think about the other person's experience throughout life and how those experiences are going to shape how they hear what you say, how they respond to what you say, and how they are impacted by what you say, and vice versa. And so this is why it's important to stop and think about trauma. Now, for the purposes of this training, we're not talking about diagnosable PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, which everybody thinks they have, but they don't. Okay, we're talking about trauma, and we're going to look at lived experiences that might have some dysfunction, that might have carried chronic relationship ruptures. And those are defined as breaks in caregiver relationships with your parent or your family, early ruptures in relationships that then impacted how you made friends, which impacted how you interacted with your colleagues, which impacts how you interact with the people in the world. Those chronic relationship ruptures. And then finally, scarcity. Scarcity plays a huge role in how we connect to others, how we get attached to others. So there's a couple of videos I did last year on attachment styles and the importance of knowing your attachment style, whether it's secure, avoidant, disorganized. I mean, there's several of them, because that often you can't necessarily change your attachment style because it's something that is a part of who you are. You learned it in early childhood, but you can learn how to express your attachment style without doing damage, so the other person understands where you're coming from. And you can also learn how to, once you know your attachment style, checking yourself and challenging yourself to try different ways of expressing yourself. So that's supremely important. And scarcity plays a huge role in how we attach. There are some people who grew up where none of the people they expected to show up showed up. And so as soon as someone in the world does, they're forever loyal to that person. And the truth is, that person, it was a nice thing that they did, but that person it's still not a good relationship. There's so many other things that you should not have a relationship with this person for. And so that really comes out of insecure attachment styles. So go look at those videos. So all of those things we're going to just kind of put into trauma, the trauma lens, okay? Trauma-informed frameworks emphasizes the importance of understanding how those experiences impact our emotional regulation. So how you're activated by what you might see as disrespect, or how you're activated by what you might see as rejection. I know there are some people who, as soon as they're told no, they just go to 10, because it isn't the no itself, it's historically what that no has meant in their life. And that no might have meant that they don't have food, that they're not in a safe home, that they're struggling and isolated by themselves. So it's important to understand that how we are in our bodies and feel safe informs how we interact with others. Because if we don't feel safe psychologically, emotionally, physically, environmentally, financially, we are more defensive, and we are more likely to deal with emotional dysregulation. Threat perception is impacted by your trauma experience. If you grew up in a highly volatile home, a highly volatile community, a community where maybe you were abused, or you witnessed other people being abused, whether that's being robbed or having their homes burglarized, or domestic violence or child abuse, all of those things can heighten our threat perception. So when someone does something that we deem as a threat, and that could even be saying something verbally. I mean, there are a lot of people sitting in a prison because someone said something that activated their threat perception, and they thought that they were defending themselves, when in reality they were really overreacting to the situation because of past history. It's going to impact interpersonal trust. And so we've already talked about trust in this series, and I want you to go back and rewatch that episode. But remember, when we don't trust other people and we use that as an excuse for not doing business, for not moving forward, for not forgiving, what we're really saying is we don't trust ourselves to hold a boundary to ensure that our needs are met in the way that we desire them to be met. And I'm going to say, like, even though I teach on this, sometimes I struggle with that as well. It's easier to just walk away than to keep trying to get somebody to be where you need them to be, or to appreciate or consider who you are. And so you just walk away. And so you have to decide, is it time to walk away, or is it time for you to learn how to set a healthy boundary, and to understand that you treat people based on who they are, not based on whatever false expectation you have set for them? And then finally, communication patterns are impacted by our trauma experiences. So again, if you grew up in a household where people avoided conflict, then that means no one ever taught you how to apologize, how to sit with the discomfort and hear things you don't like, but understand that we got to do that so that we can understand each other. How to forgive when someone has done something that doesn't feel right, but to know that it wasn't intentional, or that they've done the work to actually repair the harm. So all of those things are impacted. And this is why it isn't that you have a trauma. It's that you have lived experience that has impacted how you engage with others. And knowing that you have that then helps you to understand that other people have that, which means don't take everything personal. Some things just really are not about you. It's about the other person. And knowing where they're coming from is really a critical step. So how we get there is we focus on key principles that kind of really help us to navigate our experiences. The first one is safety. And I just mentioned that. Safety to express oneself. safety to say no, safety to be honest about how you feel in the situation, safety to not agree with the other person. We think about safety always kind of limited to like, well, physically, well, I didn't touch you, or, you're not being harmed. And we forget that sometimes people feel unsafe and they are silent. It doesn't mean that you are right. It doesn't mean that they agree with you. It doesn't mean that they're okay. It just means that they don't feel safe to tell you how they really feel for fear of whatever the fear might be. And so we have to, particularly when we're in positions of power, make sure that we're creating spaces that allow for other people to feel safe to express themselves and to intentionally check in if they're being silent by saying, I notice that you're silent. I don't know if you're silent because you're thinking, you're processing, or if I have taken up too much space to allow you to express yourself. I have a big personality, and I know that sometimes people can feel like, well, I'm just not going to say anything. And I have positions of power. So I try to do the best that I can to, is there something else you want to say? Did I hear that correctly? And I apologize and try to repair when there have been ruptures. Choice. People have to know that they have choice, that they have choice to disagree, that they have choice to offer a differing opinion, that they have choice to say, I don't really feel this, but I'm going to go along with it because this is the best thing that we have right now. But if I would choose not to do that, that's important as well. Collaboration. So before jumping to solutions or jumping to what you think is the best thing to do to repair the harm, to really sit with it and say, I apologize, but I really need for you to tell me how we move beyond this moment. Let's collaborate on what I can do to repair this rupture, as opposed to it just being, well, I'm going to do what I think is the right thing to do in the moment. That's extremely inconsiderate. And that too can lead to more ruptures in the relationship. Trustworthiness. And this is really transparency and integrity. If you say you're going to do a thing, do the thing. If it's better to underpromise and overdeliver than to overpromise and underdeliver. And far too many people are doing the latter. They talk big. They're, with social media, you could be anybody you want to be. You could create whatever persona you want to create. And I think a lot of people get lost in the persona that they create on Instagram, as opposed to really seeing who they are and working on improving that part. And then finally, empowerment is a key component to overcoming trauma. People need to feel they have a sense of agency, that they have the capacity to say what they want and to pursue what they want and to take risk on who they are. You love yourself when you take a risk on yourself, a positive risk on yourself. You're scared to go to college, but you go. You want to meet a person, but you don't know how they're going to take it, but you go and you introduce yourself. You start eating healthy and change your lifestyle, even if nobody else supports you. Whatever it is, when you can take positive risk on yourself, that means you're building self-empowerment. You're building self-esteem. You're beginning to see the value of who you are. So there are some neurological things that occur when we've experienced trauma, dysfunction, chronic relationship ruptures, or scarcity. And it really impacts how our nervous system perceives individuals' information and exchanges. And so it's really important to know what your stuff is. Some of us, just as our survival techniques, withdraw and shut down. And so that could mean at work, you have something to share on a committee, but you just they're just going and I can't get away, whatever, and you just shut down. This can be in a relationship, that they're wrong, but because they're so boisterous, so loud, it's so difficult for you to get in there and say what you have to say, so you just shut down. And it also can be rooted in past experiences. Maybe the person you're talking to has a history of really being successful, really being effective at what they do, and you don't feel that you really can say anything because they're usually always right. that's definitely another thing that we see. Aggressiveness and defensiveness kind of can play a role. Hypervigilance, where you're always looking for the problem. Emotional numbing, also known as becoming apathetic, where you just kind of say, I don't care. It is what it is. You're going to do what you're going to do. It doesn't matter what I think anyway, so whatever. Just do what you're going to do. And then finally, this could also play out in a way where, and I always tell people, when you become apathetic, because you're trying to block out the negative emotions, you end up blocking out all of the positive emotions too. So you hurt yourself twice. You hurt yourself by not standing up for yourself and asserting your boundaries, but then you hurt yourself because you can't feel all the good things that you deserve to feel in this world as a means of protection. And this is why we always have to work towards seeking out connection as opposed to relying on self-protection. And I know it's difficult. I'm the same way. I will armor up in a minute. But at the same time, when you do that, I know it's like, damn, I'm armored up and this isn't going to hurt me, but the good stuff also can't get in. So it's a double-edged sword. It's better to just deal with the discomfort of saying what you need to say, expressing yourself how you need to express yourself, than to lock yourself up and, not live the way that you want to. And when we understand these things, we can lose a bit of blame. We can stop blaming ourselves. We're like, okay, I see what I'm doing and I don't want to do that anymore. And instead of me blaming myself or talking down on myself because I'm struggling, I'm just going to admit I'm struggling with these things. I'm going to continue to work on these things. I'm a human being. This is a part of life. Every day I'm evolving or I'm working towards something better. So the ways that we want to really use a strategy to deal with this is to think about how we regulate in moments of discomfort. So some people regulate by eating, which is unhealthy. Some people regulate by drinking alcohol or taking substances, even if it's prescription meds. Because I think that there's a level at which, yes, meds can help, but if we think that only meds can help and that we have no control, then we disempower ourselves, which is the total opposite of what we want to do. Some of us self-medicate by engaging in things that we know are just not good for us, going back to that old friend or that old companion who isn't doing anything for you, feeds the negativity. So instead, what we want to try to do is learn how to reduce psychological stress by using breath work. So counting your breaths, slow breathing in, meditative work, visualizations. Take yourself to where you want to be and think about the steps that it would take for you to get there. Also, really trying to repair the ruptures in the relationship. So taking some accountability for how you got there, and for those of us for those who feel that it's the other person who did it. It's them. You got to take accountability for how you got there. Let's say you feel somebody is using you. They've used you for 5 years. The accountability you have to take is why you allowed that to go on for so long. Why was it okay for this to continue as long as it did without you setting some very clear boundaries to stop it? And that's difficult to do because we're like, well, I'm not the one who did it. They're doing it. But you allow it. So in order for it to change, it means you're going to have to take accountability, because even if you kick that person out your life, let's say that's what you choose to do, you're part of the problem. So someone else will come in and continue that behavior because you're not setting boundaries. You're not holding yourself accountable for what you say you want and what you say you don't want. And then predictability and responsiveness increases felt safety. So talking to people about what you really need to feel safe in the moment, to help create some predictability and consistency in the relationship. Sometimes that's a weekly check-in. Sometimes that's a daily check-in if it's business. Sometimes if it's needed. Sometimes it's putting some safeguards in place, like this is our decision tree. We will come back and talk if it involves any of these things. If this continues to go on, this is the way that we check in with each other. And so if you are in the repair work ebook that you should have to go along with these sessions, then you can go to trauma-informed relationship pair work, and there is some really good worksheets for you to be able to engage with. So one of the things I love in here, and I want to make sure, is that it covers what we just covered. So it gives you in writing all the things that I just covered for you with some definitions to kind of help guide you. And it also has a really awesome reflection sheet. So it talks about on here some journaling prompts to kind of help you if you're dealing with threat perceptions that kind of keep you defensive and aggressive and more reactive than you'd like to be. And so one of the things it has on here too that I really love is the nervous system mapping. So it helps you to kind of think about what are the early stages of your stress response? How do you feel it in your body? What happens in your thought process? Do you tense up? Do you get avoided? Do you get more, like, okay, wait, listen to me? Because once we begin to identify what our process is, then we can begin to change it. So I really hope that this has been helpful for you. Trust me, use the ebook, work at this. We all are going to continue to have ruptures in our relationships because we are all dealing with our own lived experiences. And the best thing that we can do is to extend grace to ourselves, to do our best to be better than we were yesterday, and to trust that love is out there, positivity is out there, collaboration is out there, and we are at the center of making those things happen. So I hope you have a great first week of February, or whenever you happen to catch this episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if this has been meaningful to you. And of course, go to humanarchitectstudio.com and download the free ebook so that you can work on this at your own pace as we go through this 6-week series and beyond. I hope to see you next week. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.